The rain hammered against the pawn shop window as Maria clutched the small velvet box in her trembling hands. Inside lay her grandmother's wedding ring, the only thing of value she had left in this world, the only connection to a woman who had raised her with nothing but love and worn hands. Maria's stomach twisted with hunger and shame as she pushed open the door, the bell above chiming like a funeral dirge. She hadn't eaten in 3 days. Her daughter Sophia, just 7 years old, had been surviving on crackers and water. This morning, Sophia had fainted at school. The nurse's pitying look had shattered something inside Maria. A mother's. Love knows no pride, no limits, no treasure too sacred to sacrifice. The pawnbroker barely looked up as Maria placed the ring on the counter. His practiced eye assessed it in seconds. 200, he grunted. Maria's heart sank. It was worth so much more, but she was in no position to negotiate. She nodded, fighting back tears as she signed away the last piece of her grandmother's memory. The cash felt heavy and hollow in her pocket as she left the shop, stepping back into the relentless rain. What Maria didn't know was that someone had been watching her the entire time. James Richardson sat in his black sedan across the street, waiting out the downpour before his next meeting. The CEO of Richardson Industries, a technology empire worth billions, had built his fortune on reading people, on seeing what others missed, and something about the young woman, who'd just exited the pawn shop, had caught his attention. It wasn't just her obvious poverty or the defeated slope of her shoulders. It was something in her eyes, a fierce determination mixed with devastating sorrow. He'd seen that look before, decades ago in his own mother's eyes when she'd sold her wedding ring to keep him fed after his father abandoned them. On impulse, James stepped out of the car, rain immediately soaking his $1,000 suit. He pushed into the pawn shop, where the same disinterested broker looked up with sudden recognition and a greedy smile. "Mr. Richardson, what an honor." The woman who just left. What did she sell? The broker hesitated, then slid the velvet box across the counter. James opened it, revealing a simple gold band with a small diamond. Modest by his standards, but he could see the care with which it had been maintained, the love it represented. "How much did you give her?" 200. "It's worth maybe 450. I'll give you 5,000 for it." "Right now." The broker's eyes widened. He knew better than to question a billionaire's logic. "Of course, Mr. Richardson." James pocketed the ring and left, but he didn't return to his car. Instead, he followed the direction the woman had gone, some inexplicable pull driving him forward. He found her 2 blocks away, standing outside a grocery store, counting her meager bills with shaking hands, clearly calculating what she could afford. He watched as she entered, as she walked past the fresh meat and vegetables to the clearance section, as she carefully selected the cheapest bread, peanut butter, and a gallon of milk. Her cart held maybe $20 worth of food. The rest, he realized, was probably for rent or utilities. James made a decision that would seem reckless to anyone who knew him. He approached her in the checkout line. "Excuse me," he said gently. Maria turned, her tired eyes wary. She'd learned to be suspicious of men who approached her, especially well-dressed ones. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I was in the pawn shop earlier. I saw you sell a ring." Maria's face flushed with humiliation. She grabbed her bags, ready to flee. "I don't need charity." "It's not charity," James said quickly. "I'd like to buy something from you. Something I think you can give me that no one else can." She stopped, confused and still defensive. "I have nothing else to sell?" "You have your story," James said. "I'm looking for someone to consult on a project. A real project. I'll pay you $1,000 for 2 hours of your time tomorrow, just to talk to me." Maria stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "Why would you pay me $1,000 to talk?" "Because sometimes the people with the least have seen the most," James said. "And I think you might have insights I need." It sounded absurd even to him, but he pressed a business card into her hand along with $200 in cash. "That's an advance. The address is on the card. Tomorrow at 10. If you don't come, keep the money. No strings." Before she could respond, he walked away, leaving Maria standing in the rain, clutching groceries, cash, and a business card that read James Richardson, CEO, Richardson Industries. That night, after feeding Sophia the first real meal they'd had in days, Maria researched James Richardson on her ancient phone. Her hands trembled as she read about his billions. his philanthropy, his reputation as both ruthless and fair. Why would such a man seek her out? The next morning, dressed in her only interview outfit, Maria took 2 buses to the gleaming Richardson Industries headquarters. The receptionist seemed shocked when she gave her name, but a call was made, and minutes later, Maria found herself in a top-floor office with views of the entire city. James stood from behind his desk, gesturing to a comfortable chair. "Thank you for coming." "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," Maria admitted. "This seems impossible." "I want to tell you a story first," James said, settling across from her. 30 years ago, my mother sold her wedding ring to buy food for me and my sister. We were homeless. She worked 3 jobs but couldn't keep up. I watched her break herself trying to keep us alive. I swore then that if I ever had the power to help people like her, I would. Maria's eyes widened as understanding began to dawn. I built my company, made my billions, started foundations and programs. But lately, I've felt disconnected from the people I'm trying to help. My board designs programs based on statistics, not stories. Yesterday, watching you sell that ring, I saw my mother. I saw real sacrifice. And I realized I needed perspective I don't have anymore. He leaned forward. I want to launch a new initiative, micro-grants for families in crisis. No bureaucracy, no judgment. But I need someone who understands what that crisis actually feels like to help design it. Someone who can tell me what would have actually helped in your situation. What dignity looks like when you're desperate. Maria sat in stunned silence. When she finally spoke, her voice shook. You're serious? Completely. I'm offering you a position as a consultant. 3 months initially, $50,000. If it works out, we'll discuss something permanent. You'll work with my team to design this program from the ground up. But I'm nobody, Maria whispered. I have no degree, no experience. You have the most important qualification, James interrupted. You understand the people we're trying to help because you are one of them. That's worth more than any MBA. He opened a drawer and pulled out the velvet box. Maria gasped as he slid it across the desk. This belongs to you. Consider it a signing bonus. Maria burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. Years of held-back grief, shame, fear, and exhaustion poured out. James waited quietly, letting her release what she'd been holding inside. When she finally looked up, she said something that surprised him. I'll take the job, but I want to buy back my ring properly. Let me earn it. James smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in months. Deal. Over the following months, Maria proved invaluable. Her insights revolutionized how the company approached poverty assistance. She knew that money wasn't enough. People needed dignity, opportunity, and someone who believed in them. The Emergency Family Fund launched with Maria as its director, helping thousands of families avoid the impossible choices she'd faced. A year later, James stood at a podium announcing the program's expansion. Behind him sat Maria, now confident and professionally dressed, her grandmother's ring back on her finger where it belonged. When he called her to the stage, the applause was thunderous. None of this would exist without one woman's courage to sacrifice everything for her child, James told the crowd, and without remembering that behind every statistic is a human, being with dignity, dreams, and worth beyond measure. As Maria hugged Sophia in the front row afterward, her daughter asked, Mama, how did this happen? Maria looked up at James, who was watching them with quiet satisfaction, and smiled. Someone saw me when I felt invisible, Mija. And he reminded me that our value isn't in what we own, but in who we are and what we're willing to do for love. She touched her grandmother's ring, feeling its familiar weight. Some treasures, she'd learned, you can lose and find again. But the most valuable treasures, love, dignity, compassion, hope, can never truly be sold. They can only be shared, growing larger each time they're given away. And in that truth, both Maria and James had found something worth far more than billions. Purpose, connection, and the profound power of seeing another person's humanity in their darkest hour.